What's up, everybody? How's it going? We hope you're good, and thank you for listening to the Whatcast. And as promised, the UFO report has finally come out. So Mike got to take a look at that, and we'll go over that. And he also found a pretty interesting article pertaining to the UAP phenomenon. That's, and I guess, investigation as far as what's going to happen moving forward. Did you get to read that whole report, Mike? Or was it like 900 pages?
No. Yeah, I kind of just glanced at it and looked at summaries instead because that shit's so fucking boring. And it really, nothing exciting came of it. And basically, it was summed up with saying we identified 60% of the cases. The other ones need more study to determine what they could possibly be. And they also said that maybe some of the sightings, some of the clusters around military sites and testing or whatever might not actually be what they seem.
Now, to say that they can explain 60%, with that number in mind, and seeing all the new videos of UAPs, UFOs, flying saucers, whatever you want to call them, all terms are welcome here. But, I mean, that seems like a lot. That sounds like a lie.
Well, you think that they should be able to identify more or less?
I think they've probably identified maybe 20 to 30%.
No, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they identified like 70%. Because really think about it. Like if you're looking at, I can't remember the exact number of reports that they were looking at, but it was a decent number of reports that they were investigating specifically. And if you take into consideration just by numbers, the amount of reports that you get, most of those are going to be something that you can explain that the witness or the witness was not familiar with. You've got things like weather balloons, and maybe you've got a pilot who's never seen a weather balloon before. The sun hit the balloon just right, so it made it look weird. And I hate to use weather balloon because it's so cliched, but it's true. Like you see a weather balloon with the sun hitting it in a weird way, and it could look like some sort of UFO sort of thing. Or the report indicated that a lot of, I can't remember the exact percent, but that a good number of the reports were actually foreign surveillance vehicles or drones or whatever. So maybe their drones look different than what the witnesses are used to. So it gets reported. But I'm more concerned with, and even in my opinion, even if they were able to explain 90% of them, there's still 10% that they don't know what the fuck it is. And that's significant.
Even with saying 60%, that's still a huge percentage of unexplainable shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I don't know. So basically, this report is saying the study continues, and that's it. And apparently there is a classified version of the report, but I would be very surprised if it contained anything that's significantly juicy. But that's the I just want to get something of substance.
Yeah, I mean,
is that too much to ask? God damn it.
From the last time we talked about this report, I mean, we talked about when they were going to release it, when it was late, and now that it's out. I think realistically it's all moving a little too fast. I think that we should, I don't know if being patient's the right word. We've been patient for decades. And again, every time I think about this shit and disclosure, I'm just reminded of how they've lied about it all these years. That doesn't leave my mind.
Yeah. And it's, and then you got to think about like what are the lies even? What are they lying about the lies? Because you look at the Richard Doty stuff, and it's they're lying on the complete opposite thing. You know, it's, rather than saying that there's no aliens and UFOs, now they're saying there are aliens and UFOs, and look, here they are, and it's all staged. Like what's real? What is fucking real in any of this when it comes to the government? I don't trust a goddamn thing they say. They could say that UFOs are going to land tomorrow, and when they landed, I wouldn't believe that they were actually what they're saying they are.
Yeah.
Just because that's how much they've lied about the subject.
Yeah, everything seems to be leading us to cloudiness, fogginess. Again, we always talk about muddying the waters, but they're using interesting things like all the face filter shit, all on the apps and all that stuff, and just distractions and everything. I think they're going to keep pacifying us. I expected the report to say that the study continues. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad the study continues, but will we ever get any real information? That's the question. And is the study even really continuing, or is this going to be like another Blue Book sort of situation, you know? Or maybe they already have all the answers and they're using this study to be like, oh, look what we just found out.
I mean, just in the time of us doing the show on the Loeb, the AI cryptid thing, I mean, more AI programs for making and producing art have come out. And I actually was going to tell you this earlier. I came across my first case of somebody, these new shocking photos have been revealed of this a long lost explorer's camera, and it reveals a strange land with strange people. And it's like after you've messed with the AI shit, you can clearly see it's just AI generated art, but they're already trying to pass it off as truth, and it seems like everything's like that. Every aspect of everything has some bullshitting effect to it. You know, everything. It's weird. They can release footage, and it's going to look like, we talked about the backroom stuff. And like, even there's, I was talking to our buddy Sith Roll on Instagram. He sent me a clip of what was supposed to be a gargoyle on top of a church. And I was talking to him about the backroom stuff. And they just made this filter that makes shit look super real. We've talked about how you want shitty footage to work with to make fake footage. And it's kind of like a very light version of that. The shit looks very real. And on this clip of this gargoyle, they're running the same filter. So, I mean, it's just like this new wave of bullshitting capability. So I agree with you. They can say something lands tomorrow. And if it does land, I mean, it could be some new type of person carrying drone. It could be just fucking, who knows? It's too far gone for me at this point. I'm not going to believe anything they say.
Yeah, like until we start actually like becoming like a Star Trek sort of situation where we've just got aliens hanging out and coming and going, and it's like just everyday life, then I'll be like, okay, aliens are here. But if you're telling me, like some military base, the aliens have landed, or like the White House or whatever, and they're only coming here and this is where we're getting the documented footage, and then fuck right off. But if they're like showing up in all over the world, that's a different thing, and they're actually making their presence known all over the world. It's not just through government or military channels, because fuck those guys.
Be to wake up, Mike. It's good. They're gonna be here. It's gonna be too late for you. They're gonna be here fiddling with your beehole the whole time you were just ignoring.
Oh, I wasn't ignoring, Mateo.
I was waiting.
I was waiting for them to fiddle my beehole.
That's what they wanted the whole time. So you sent me an article that I find more interesting than this report that was released. The government has just finished divvying up the money and who gets what. And there has been an amendment made to this year's National Defense Authorization Act. And that is actually what funds the Department of Defense itself, its annual budgeting. So this amendment was introduced by Representative Mike Gallagher. Why is that name so familiar to me, Mike?
Was he one of the guys that was asking the good questions at the that initial hearing?
I think so. I'm gonna have to. When I was reading this article, that's what I thought. I ran out of time. I wanted to look it up. But I think so. But it seems good old Mike is out for blood. He's a Wisconsin Republican and a member of the Armed Services Committee. But his amendment requires the Department of Defense to review historical documents related to unidentified aerial phenomena dating back to 1945 and to report on their findings. And that's very interesting to me. That predates Roswell.
Yeah, sure do.
That's going pretty hard, Mr. Gallagher. I like it.
Yeah, he might have actually been the guy that brought up this case specifically at the hearing, the 1945 crash.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with that specific case at all?
Not to my recollection. I'm sure we may have talked about it on or off the show, but if asking me now, no, I don't know shit about it.
All right, I'll do a quick breakdown of what happened. So, we know about the Trinity testing that occurred at White Sands in New Mexico, and at the time I think those were in July of 1945. Those testing, but obviously you're not going to be able to hide a nuke going off. So what the government at the time had told people was it was a ammunition magazine containing high explosives and pyrotechnics. And then on August 6th, the same day we dropped the first bomb on Japan, it was declassified and announced to the world that we had been testing them at White Sands. So the people nearby obviously were alarmed because they're like, you fuckers lied to us. So they kind of had the people in the area kind of had this distrust as a result of that. But in I guess it would be late August technically, between August 20th and August 25th, there was this secret operation that was going on in San Antonio, New Mexico, outside of San Antonio, New Mexico. It was the operation itself was west of Old US 85 near milepost 139, which is the San Antonio exit of the Interstate 25 for those people that want to take a road trip. But the military had been coming and going with these huge flatbed trucks and picking up and hauling away debris. This was the people that reported I shouldn't say reported, but the people that actually knew what was going on was this family. It was a mother and 2 kids, I believe. But they had witnessed in the desert this long path of like torn up earth with metallic debris flying around. And then there was this craft that they described. It looked like it was the shape of an avocado, and it was crashed into the ground and partially buried with the rest of it sticking up at like a weird angle from the ground. Because they saw it before the military saw it. They were aware of what was going on. So when the military were coming in, they knew of this ridge that they could look down on and watch the military load this crash debris and cart it off to the local military base. But they said that they were fairly confident that there were living beings inside the craft.
Ooh.
But they didn't interact with them. But they said that they were moving around the outside of the craft when they were looking down from the ridge, and they don't know what happened to them. So this case is specifically what prompted the part of that funding to go in the NDAA to look back at, I guess, perceived crash cases dating back to this case and forward to see if there's any evidence that had not been recovered or that had not been reported that would support the UAP sightings. So that's pretty fucking interesting, especially with the idea that there's bodies that are being recovered.
Right. And then 2 years later, we got Roswell, where more bodies were supposed to have been recovered.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I got some cool stuff to talk about regarding Roswell, too.
Nice.
Yeah. So what I really want to talk about, we did want to touch briefly on this stuff, just because it's something obviously of interest to us, and we've discussed the other updates. So we just want to kind of touch briefly on this, but I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about these fairly lackluster updates. So I want to talk about Disney's involvement in disclosure, or potential disclosure, I should say. Are you at all familiar with the scrapped UFO documentary that Disney was going to be putting out in the 50s?
I have heard about it. I heard about it growing up. I've heard about it covered in YouTube videos, and I think we've talked about it, but I don't know much about it. All I know is that it's basically a conspiracy theory, that there's no actual evidence that they did do that.
Well, the main person behind the project was Ward Kimball, and he was one of the head animators at Disney. He had been doing animation since the 30s. But he was involved in all the early big hits like Dumbo and Pinocchio, Fantasia. He was either the animating director, animating supervisor, or the head animator for all these different Disney projects. But interestingly, he was also the head animator for a lot of the old World War II Disney propaganda pieces. And through that, I guess, job or whatever, because he was like the propaganda guy, he started making some ties with the military and government officials. But he, in 1954, he started working with Walt Disney on this series of documentary type shows that were coming out to help promote Tomorrowland at Disneyland. So it was like the opening of Disneyland, and they were promoting Tomorrowland by talking about basically like advancements in aeronautics and things like that. Now, keep in mind, this is the 50s, so this is before we had gone to the moon. So it's, pretty, as from a modern perspective, they had a lot to learn still. But it was all detailing like the modern technology and what we were able to find out with the technology of the time and things like that. So they put out 3 episodes, but Ward Kimball had an interest in UFOs and flying saucers and all that. And he had actually discussed this with various people in the government, and as the story goes, he even had a bit of a relationship with Werner von Braun, and Werner von Braun actually shared some stuff with him about Roswell and what really happened there. But this guy, he was working with Disney. Well, he was the head animator at Disney, but he was working with Walt Disney on these Tomorrowland projects. And one day, Walt Disney himself actually comes to him and asking him what his ideas were for future Tomorrowland programs, because they had already aired 3 of them. And so he came to him and he's like, "You're interested in UFOs?" And, he was. So he said that they wanted to push for a 4th Tomorrowland program, which would be about UFOs. And the thing was that Walt Disney only wanted to do it if they had actual, real, compelling footage. Basically, like something that would prove that UFOs were real. So he was gathering all of this information together, and there was this one time he had a group of 30 people come together at the home of another Disney artist named Robert Karp. And this included astronomy professors, engineers, photographers, someone from the Jet Propulsion Lab, people like that. And during one of these occasions, I apparently it was brought up about Flight 19. Do you remember Flight 19?
Yeah, but for the listeners, quickly tell everybody what that is.
Okay. So Flight 19 was the designation that was given to a group of Avenger torpedo bombers that were on a run. They were on a practice torpedo run in 1945. And it was basically like just a training mission, nothing significant, but they had part of this was going over the Bermuda Triangle, and they had somehow got lost, and they ended up losing contact with the base. So they're trying to find their way back to Florida, and they disappeared. And then they sent another search team out, and one of the planes from that search mission also disappeared. So part of this meeting, they were discussing this, and there were some officials within, or I say officials, there were some people within this group of scientists, and apparently there were some Air Force representative, or I don't know what their rank was, but some people involved in the Air Force, and they had discussed that they thought perhaps something, the flying saucer phenomenon, whatever's behind it, might have had something to do with the disappearance of Flight 19. So it's interesting. I mean, keep in mind this meeting was taking place in the 50s now, but that disappearance took place in 45, and they were considering this scenario at that point in time.
That had to be a popular story at the time, right? That had to be in a bunch of magazines and scientific magazines, maybe something that those types of dudes keep up with.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how widely reported that case was at the time. It wouldn't surprise me if at the time it wasn't reported at all, because it was 1945. There were other things going on at the time. I mean, this was after we had bombed Hiroshima, but still, there's other things going on. I don't know if planes being lost during a training mission would have been something that they would have wanted to have reported.
Right.
But like I said, they had all these like top level consultants for these shows. And as I mentioned, one of them was Werner von Braun. And he was so involved in these programs that he would work testing doing his government job during the day, and then around 5 p.m. in the evening, he would go to Disney's studio and work with Kimball and his group, sometimes until 3 or 4 in the morning. And a lot of the times, Ward Kimball would end up driving Werner von Braun back to his hotel in Pasadena, and a lot of the times he would notice that he was being followed by an unmarked car, and Werner von Braun suggested to him that it was likely the FBI that was keeping a close eye on what they were doing, which seems pretty sketchy.
Yeah, I believe it.
But they had to, with these programs, because this was so early in our exploration of space, obviously we didn't have footage and that could be shared or photographs of distant planets or anything like that. So a lot of the stuff had to be done through artwork. So that's why the art team was so important for these projects. But they ended up working with the Air Force. A lot of the stuff that they were working on was the propaganda shorts that they were doing. But one of the first contacts that Ward Kimball had with the Air Force was this guy. He was a Major Mark Miranda. And he also had people from Douglas Aircraft, from Lockheed Martin, from the American Rocket Society, and even the British government, who were kind of working with Disney on various projects. But all of these people, with the exception of Miranda, were pushing for a show about UFOs. So it was up to Kimball to kind of get all the information together so they could make this film about UFOs. And so it was up to him to talk to Major Miranda about getting, for one, if they even had footage, and two, if they did, to try to see if they could get some of the footage for their UFO special. And before I move forward with this documentary, I just want to talk about really quick what Werner von Braun had allegedly told Ward Kimball about the Roswell craft. Apparently, because he was working in New Mexico at the time, doing testing German rockets, he was called in. He was one of the first people that was called in to the Roswell crash site. And this has been something that has been talked about in various interviews. And there was a woman who used to work at NASA and worked with Werner von Braun. I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, but she had said that he was a witness to the Roswell crash site. But anyway, he told Ward Kimball that he was one of the first people there, and that the debris was that, like he said, it was so thin that it looked like the foil that's wrapped around a stick of gum. And, he basically described the properties that we're all familiar with now. It's smooth and super lightweight, and you crumple it up and it goes back to its original shape, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he added that the ship seemed to have biological elements to it, or the craft, he called it, seemed to have biological elements to it, which is something that people have kind of proposed over time as well, that maybe there's some sort of psychic link between the craft and the occupants, and maybe it's not like a metallic construct like a car like we would think of it. It's more living, I guess, for lack of a better term. And he said the bodies that were recovered seemed to be more reptilian in nature. They had the big black eyes, but he said their skin looked like the skin of a rattlesnake.
Whoa.
So they would have had smooth scales, I guess. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it almost seems like a crossbreeding between a reptilian and a gray, if they're all small like that with the big eyes.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But getting back to Kimball and his mission to get this thing together, he said he had all of this, the whole thing plotted out. I don't know how far they got in the animation and filming process, but he said all he needed, basically what Walt Disney had told him, was put together a compelling case, and then I want the end of it to be the footage of the craft. So basically he had the whole thing ready to go except for the last 10 minutes. So he was working with Colonel Miranda, who, at this point he was Colonel Miranda, no longer major, but he was he was stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which in UFO lore, in the early days of the UFO stuff, Wright-Patterson was like the place for UFO retrieval and cover up and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was working with him and Bill Bosch, who was the head writer on the original Disney space specials. But Bill Bosch was not a believer in UFOs at all, and basically thought the whole thing was ridiculous. But he was sitting down with Miranda and Kimball one day while they were working on this UFO project, and they were talking about what they could have for the film and what they couldn't have. So Bill Bosch thinks that he's trying to make a point, like to show how silly this thing is. So he's like, hey, what about footage of flying saucers? I bet you don't have anything like that. And then according to Ward Kimball, Miranda got really serious and said that he had hundreds of feet worth of film showing different craft. And I actually have, let's see, he says that Miranda told him they've got all sorts of film, but they can't show it because it's a secret, and it's going to remain classified until the government can take one apart and analyze it. So then Bill Bosch was curious about it, so he asks him, why is it going to be kept a secret? And Miranda said that the reason that they're keeping it a secret is because if they said that they had this thing, everyone's going to look to the Air Force for answers, and they don't have the answers to what this is. And if they don't have the answers to what this is, then that could create trouble. Either it could create a panic, or it could create a war where other countries are trying to get access to this to also figure out what it is. So, and also keep in mind, this was post World War II, so this was during the Cold War. So we were worried about the Russians potentially trying to steal it from us or even start a war over this. So that's why, according to Miranda, it was being kept a secret. But he said that they had shots taken from gun cameras on planes, and he claimed they had very clear footage showing all different shapes and sizes, some with portholes, some with lights, and just different shapes. But he said, we don't know what they are. And then he used an interesting term. He said, until we can dissect it and have a reasonable explanation, we can't let the information out, and it's going to remain classified. But until we can dissect it, like almost like it is a living thing.
Yeah. Maybe he said it was bio-like. That's so weird.
Yeah. But Miranda also said another weird thing. He said there are a lot of theories we have that have already been disproved, but they're still being kept secret. So I wonder if one of those theories is that they're from another planet. Right. Yeah. But it sounds like they were going to go like really deep into, they even had, he said that he being Ward Kimball, had a rendering done for this case that they had dug up from 2000 BC, where there was a ship that spent almost a day over an Egyptian army. And apparently there's records from witnesses of this army that actually described the smell and fumes coming from these craft. And he had this whole rendering that he was doing to bring that to basically animate it or whatever to make it part of this documentary. So they're going fucking ancient aliens back in the 50s when this thing was still relatively new. How crazy is that?
Yeah, no kidding. That's incredible.
Ultimately, Miranda, even though initially he was working with Disney and saying that he was going to give them footage, he at the last minute said that they were not going to be getting any footage. And took it back.
I wonder if he got in big trouble. He's like, now go kill those two dudes.
Yeah, I don't know, but Kimball had to go back, and he told Walt Disney that they couldn't get the footage, and because he didn't have the footage, Walt Disney pulled the plug, and that was it.
Walt Disney wanted authentic UFO footage or nothing else?
Yep. He
Wow.
wasn't going to release the show without the footage.
Damn.
But I've got, so that's basically the end of that proposed documentary. But there is an interesting story from Kimball, and then I want to get into some other UFO related Disney weirdness. But so this story, and this took place in 1953. And the story kind of gets muddled a little bit because it was originally stated that, in November of 1953, there were two men, Wilbur Wilkinson and Carl Hoonroth, and they disappeared. They left Gardenia Airport in Los Angeles, rented a small plane, and they were allegedly going to be making contact with a UFO that had landed in the Mojave Desert. And they had 3 hours worth of fuel, but the plane was never found. No wreckage was ever recovered, and both men were never seen again.
Ooh.
But according to Kimball, he said that he knew Wilbur Wilkinson. He was a scientist he said that he was working on a special about rockets and space technology that they were doing for Disney. So maybe he was working with them because, I mean, this guy disappeared in 53. The original space shows that they put out came out in 54. So maybe this was like early research or whatever. I don't know. But he claims that this Wilbur Wilkinson was working with them, and one day started bringing around this guy that he just was calling Hoonroth. And he said at first no one really took notice of this guy because he was quiet and kept to himself. But then he started kind of acting weird, and he never talked much, but he walked in like this really stiff manner, and he wore a suit and tie that didn't fit him well. And one time at a party, I guess they were apparently, they used to have, these parties where they would, just like a bunch of people would get together that were kind of involved in the local UFO community, and they would just kind of discuss latest sightings or theories, things like that. And this Wilkinson guy was a part of that, and so was Ward Kimball, and apparently that's where they met. But at one of these parties, Hoonroth picked up, they had oatmeal cookies at this party, and Hoonroth picked up one of the cookies and started studying it and like turning it around in his hand, and then he took a little bite and chewed on this little bite for a while. And then he asked Ward Kimball's wife what the cookie was made of. And he was just like acting weird about this oatmeal cookie.
We've heard of this behavior before.
Yeah, like a Men in Black sort of situation. But apparently before these guys took off to go find this grounded UFO, Wilkinson said that they were going to a place where there was no death and there was no taxes. And then he was never seen again.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that's like an actual fact. Wilbur Wilkinson and Carl Hoonroth disappeared after leaving the Gardenia Airport.
Where there's no death or taxes.
Yeah. And that kind of goes with the a lot of the New Age stuff, where they talk about how aliens are like eternally young, and we can join them, and like the even what was it, Heaven's Gate, the Heaven's Gate thing where they had to kill their mortal bodies to get on the UFO. that was trailing behind Hale-Bopp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fucking wacky people, man. Crazy shit. But what if they're right though? Like, what if they were right and they really did hitch a ride and they're laughing at us now? Like, oh, you think we're dumb? We're fucking chilling, man. We had it right.
Yeah, they learned that it would work. They're like, yeah, guys, this is not going to sound good.
Yeah, hear me out. Just hear me out.
This is going to look terrible on the news, but we're fucking going to another planet.
Yeah, fuck them. They can call us idiots. We know what's up. And now they're partying with fucking aliens trailing behind a comet. And we're the idiots. So, yeah. But getting back to Disney and I do want to talk about a sort of, well, first off, they in 1995 they had some weird stuff that occurred. In January, they had this 2-week-long conference called UFOs: The Reality of the Phenomenon. And there were scientists there, former military, authors, researchers, and the whole thing was completely funded by Disney. They paid all these people. They paid for their airfare. They paid for them to stay at the hotels at Disney. But they did very little promotion for the event. And the only thing that signified this conference was taking place was a small sign outside the conference center.
Okay, I think you talked about this really, really early on. Like, I mean, within the first year of the show.
Yeah, probably. But it's just really weird that they would fund all of this and then not do anything with it, like not promote it. It's very odd.
Clearly meant for a select few, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning could have been, but later that year, they put out this documentary that was a promotion for this new attraction called the extraterrestrial experience. Why is that so difficult to say?
Why would they name something that? That's terrible. That's more than difficult to say.
Yeah. Well, I think I talked about this on the show because I actually was fortunate enough to have been able to experience the attraction before it got removed for being too scary.
Right. Oh, being too scary, huh?
Yeah. It was, and I thought it was fucking awesome, but I could definitely see how it would be too scary. So the basic premise was you were in this, it was part of the Tomorrowland part in the Magic Kingdom, and you went into the building, and I don't know how Disneyland is. I would assume that it's probably pretty similar to Disney World, but like each attraction has like different parts to it. So it's like, while you're waiting in line for the main thing, like there's stuff going on off on the side, or you know, you'll wait in line and then you'll go into this room where there'll be something that happens to kind of give you a story towards what you're going into or something like that. But in this one, you went in and they were doing this, they were showing, it was like a presentation of teleportation. And so they were talking about how alien life exists and we've made contact with alien life. We're able to basically use this new technology to teleport to different areas. So to demonstrate that, they have this cute little alien in this big tube thing. And there's a robot who's sitting there saying he's going to give the demonstration. He hits the button and the lights go off and inside this tube lights up and then fills with smoke. And then you see these like lights kind of break up in there and it goes through a tube or like a pipe thing that goes to this other big glass tube that's connected to it. And then that fills with light and smoke. And then you've got this horrible abomination that shows up in there. And it's like a version of that creature that you saw all cute and shit, but it looked like it was all burned and like it had skin falling off of it, and one of its eyes was now all red and shit.
Oh god.
And he's like, "Oh man, we messed up, but rest assured, this is safe, and to prove it, we've got a demonstration for you in the next room." So then you go in the next room, and this monitor comes up, and this scientist guy's on there, and he's talking about how he's actually on another planet, and show you how safe teleportation is. He's going to teleport himself from this planet to the tube that's in the center of the room that we're in. And so he starts preparing the thing, but then somehow this alien life form hijacks it, and the alien life form gets teleported there. And you see the huge tube in the middle of the room fill up with smoke, and then you see this huge like tentacles silhouette thing, and then all the lights go out and you hear glass break, and they've got these effects so that it feels like when the glass breaks, you feel like wind kind of go blow into your face, and like a little like spray of wetness.
Holy shit.
And then you see the monitors turn back on, and you see like body cam footage from security guards that come, and they actually have security guards come into this room, and they're going between the aisles, and then the seats have these speakers on them, so it sounds like the monster is running by. Like you hear it come from one direction and then fade into the other direction because it's going through the speakers behind your chair. And then they've got these things that you had to put over your shoulders, and it'll run. As it runs by, you feel it push down on it, and so you feel it put pressure on your shoulders, and you feel a tentacle hit the back of your head. And then you see the body cam footage from these security guards, and then they get taken out one by one, and you hear crunching sounds, and you get sprayed with warm water, so it like blood. It's fucking scary as shit if you're a kid. I thought it was awesome. I was 19 at the time when I went, so it was 2000. I think it was 2000 when I went, and yeah, dude, it was so fucking cool.
This was at Disneyland?
This was at Disney, but they ended up, it only lasted from 95 to I think 2000 or 2001. So like they got rid of it shortly after I went, but it was so fucking cool, man. But to promote this, they had this documentary thing that do you remember on Sundays they used to do the Disney movie on Sunday nights?
Yes, sir.
I don't remember what channel, maybe ABC. This was originally supposed to be aired on during that time slot, but they had concerns that it might be too scary, so they put it out on UPN earlier in the evening, and it was this documentary. Well, to this day, it's never been stated whether. It's effectively been covered up. You can find it on YouTube. I'll send you a link so you can put it in the show notes. But you can find it on YouTube, which is basically someone had recorded it on VHS and then used their VHS to upload to YouTube. So it's really low quality, but the whole documentary is there. And even Michael Eisner was a part of it. He was at the very beginning of it, talking about the new Tomorrowland thing, and they've got a documentary coming up, whatever. And then it's kind of like this lighthearted thing because he's surrounded by soldiers with guns, and then he's like, "I'm gonna go have a look," and then the soldiers step in to block his path, and he's like, "Oh, maybe not." And then it goes into the documentary, but the whole documentary it like focuses on alien abductions, and it's trying to basically say that aliens are real. And I got a couple quotes from the documentary that I wanted to say, that I wanted to share, just to kind of show what sort of tone they were setting with this. Because at the end of the documentary, it's like a 45-minute documentary, but at the end, it's a promo for this new ride, and it's like a like a fun, like, oh, hey, look, we got a new ride. Let's go. Ha ha ha. And we're at Disneyland. But everything that went before it was aliens are real and they're abducting people and holy fuck, prepare to be meeting aliens. But there's part of the documentary where the narrator says most Americans will likely explore outer space aboard crafts of alien origin. Statistics indicate a greater probability that you will experience alien contact in the next 5 years than you will win a state lottery. How do you prepare for such an extraordinary event? Here at the new Tomorrowland at Disney World, scientists and Disney engineers have brought to life a possible scenario that helps acclimate the public to the inevitable alien encounter. And that's the promo for this extraterrestrial thing.
Oh my God. It's a fucking conditioning experiment.
Fucking weird, right?
Yeah. We know Disney loves that mind control stuff. That subliminal messaging.
Yeah, they've got government ties.
Dick Castles in the back of Little Mermaid. You knew about Dick Castles, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
You love Dick Castles.
I fucking wish I lived in a Dick Castle. But it's just, it's crazy. Like, you got to watch the documentary. Because, again, this was originally supposed to air during the family movie night presented by Disney. But when they put it on UPN, a lot of people called UPN complaining about it because it was too scary to be a Disney thing. They're like, what the fuck? This is terrifying. So Disney was like, we're not going to put that on the thing. So it only aired once on UPN, and that was it. And then they've scrubbed it. So you can find it on YouTube, VHS quality, and that's it. They never put it out anywhere.
I definitely want to watch that. Now, it ended up airing on UPN, but not on that. I remember, what was it, like the weekend movie?
Yeah, it was Sunday nights, I believe.
Yeah, back then you had to have the Disney Channel, right? If you're going to watch anything.
No, it was on, this was on, I want to say ABC, but I don't remember. I wasn't watching it in the mid 90s, but when I was a kid, I watched it every Sunday.
Yeah, that's why we watched it. It's because it was like a treat. It was too expensive to have the Disney Channel, so they threw up a movie every weekend. Yeah, and that, if this is some type of conditioning thing, everybody I knew watched it, right? Half the world was watching it.
Yeah, we at this point it was 95, so we would have been teenagers, and we would have been too old to be watching the Disney Sunday movie, but. If I knew that they were putting out a show about potentially real aliens, you bet your fucking sweet ass I would have been watching that shit in 95.
Yeah.
It's such a bummer they got rid of that thing, though, that ride. Well, I call it a ride. It was not a ride, but it was fucking awesome. It was so cool. And they changed it to Stitch's Escape. And I think they really toned it down and made it more cartoony. And it was Stitch from Lilo and Stitch instead of a big scary alien. But that shit was so fucking cool, man. And especially considering it was at Disney and it was that wild.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something they would do at all. It sounds scary. It sounds like if they put something like that on TV that parents would complain and even about that attraction, that it doesn't sound like it would be around too long. Do we know how long they kept that attraction, the extra testicle?
Let me take a look really quick. I think it was 2001.
I wonder if they only had it up for that year. And just to point out, Lilo and Stitch, that's a movie about an alien as well. More conditioning. When they get here, they want you to love them.
Okay, so it opened in 95, and they changed it to the Lilo and Stitch thing in 2003.
Oh, wow.
But originally, it was supposed to be even scarier, I guess.
What?
Yeah, the original name for the attraction was Nostromo.
Whoa.
And so can you guess what the original idea for the alien was?
Artificial insemination?
No, it was a fucking xenomorph.
Oh, yeah, the Nostromo. There you go.
Yeah, it was supposed to be an Alien tie-in.
Whoa, that would have been so cool.
But they decided not to because the Alien franchise was all rated R. So it would have been, basically all the Disney attractions are supposed to be based on PG or G movies. So they had to change it from Alien to, what we got. But it was the original time they did it, it was supposed to be really fucking scary. And they toned it down, but then even then it was pretty fucking scary. But fun fact, Tim Curry was the voice for the robot that melted the alien in the first room.
Huh.
I just found that out just this very moment.
It seems like, for a weird reason, that Disney was dead set on putting out something about aliens. First, the xenomorphs thing, that didn't work out. Then you got your extraterrestrial. And then they put Lilo and Stitch in there, which is, I joked before, but that is a movie about an alien coming to Earth.
Yeah. And it's just, and the whole thing with the documentary and like, just that line that this is used to help condition the humanity for inevitable alien contact. Fuck, man.
Can you imagine being a little kid and hearing that at Disneyland?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be so goddamn
That's
scary.
Nuts. Well, we now have learned that Disney is in league with the aliens, and they want you to know that they're going to teleport you and there's going to be a malfunction.
Yeah. And little known fact, all of those costumed characters are actually gray aliens underneath there.
Oh, God.
It's not humans.
Tim Curry's a gray alien.
Tim Curry is also a gray alien. Correct.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.